let's move on to the brewing Substack and Twitter battle, which goes back to an exchange between Matt Taibbi and Twitter CEO and SpaceX CEO and Tesla CEO Elon Musk, which Elon Musk bizarrely and for some reason felt wise to share on Twitter and then quickly delete. Screenshots last forever, and so we have some of these here. If we could put up the first element. I think the account Halal Flow may have been one of the first to post this, but you can find the full exchanges over at his account and elsewhere. Just read some. So Matt basically reached out to him and said, hey, he says, you're taking down all of my Twitter files threads because you're mad at me personally for not leaving the company where I was already employed. Really? Elon Musk writes back, no, this shouldn't be happening. Will be fixed tomorrow. But then he seizes on something in Matt's tweet, text, and he says, you're employed at Substack? Mm-hmm. And from there, Taibbi then explains to him, he says, my subscribers there employ me, and I have a great thing going there. I also have loyalty to the company, which did originally hire me. And if I moved to Twitter, it would have been a major optics issue for us both. But this isn't related to the threads being removed. So this is going to be fixed. Musk tells him it's going to be fixed. And then Taibbi explains to him that he was using the word hired loosely.
Yeah.
And he says, I was never a Substack employee. I was one of the first Substack Pro contributors, which is a guaranteed return system for the first year. That was known publicly. Like Taibbi has been very transparent. Yeah. Substack was offering deals to all sorts of different writers.
It's a contract.
Yeah, it's a contract. They offered me one several years ago where it's like, we'll give you, because if you're going to leave your full-time job based on the hope that people are going to, fund your, at $5, $6 a month, fund your Substack, then what they were doing is they were giving a kind of, yes, here's a minimum to make sure you can pay your mortgage and entice you to come over. They don't do that anymore. What they found, I think, is that a lot of people were coasting. Like it worked for some of the biggest names, like Iglesias, Taibbi, Andrew Sullivan. Like, did he take one? I don't remember if he took one or not. It worked for them because they ended up bringing in a lot more, readership than the minimum paid out. So it was a gamble. Like, am I going to get because if you end up getting, if they offer you $200,000 and you make $1 million, like they keep most of that extra. Yeah. But if they offer you $200,000 and you only bring in 50, well, now you didn't get evicted, right? Because you didn't get foreclosed on. So anyway, these Substack deals were widely known. Musk then tweeted, if you remember, apparently Matt Taibbi is or was employed by Substack. So he read this full exchange that he had privately with Matt, and then publicly tweeted that he was employed, which wasn't true. As though he had inside secret information. Right. Matt had told him he was somehow actually employed. Right, like he had some other source. Yeah. Like when in fact the source was Matt, telling him the truth about how Substack. And to me it seems like Musk is having a hard time understanding a company that pays its creators or that has a relationship that sends money to creators rather than one that the relationship goes the other way. Give us your $8 a month. Yeah, it might be like that. I mean, I also think he's just has a million pots on the stove right now and is like very transparently working through his different issues on public forums. So he tweets this, then deletes it, I think, and this is in the broader context of him being upset that Substack launched a notes feature that he thinks is competitive with Twitter, which is where the whole feud between Musk and Taibbi started. That's because he tweeted that Taibbi was apparently an employee of Substack to undercut Taibbi's points about why he was not going to be on Twitter anymore, was not going to be working on the Twitter files anymore. And so that was where Musk was coming from in tweeting that out. I really just think, like, honest to goodness, I think Elon Musk is working on all of these huge different projects. He's trying to make Twitter, he now says he has it in shape to break even instead of running that $3 million annual deficit that he said it was running when he took over. And he's so public in dealing with these different workplace issues. Like he's actually dealt with basically human resources issues on Twitter. And so when you can see it all playing out in real time, for someone who's extremely busy, sort of aggressive and combative, it's just weird. And I think that's where you get to him deleting this because
he's inaccurate. He's interpreting this stuff inaccurately. He probably realized that he shouldn't have tweeted this out. It got members of Congress to say, well, now we know when Matt Taibbi wouldn't give up his sources, when they were pressing him for sources in that absurd congressional hearing where Democrats just beclowned themselves about a month ago, they were like, well, now we know Musk is Taibbi's source. It's like, oh, well
what tipped you off?
Yes. Great work, you guys.
And since now everybody apparently knows that, Musk seems like he's the only one who didn't know that. His relationship with Taibbi is one as a source to a journalist, and so many sources just don't understand what that is like. So Jeet here, if you could put up this second element, put up one of my favorite quotes out there. Every journalist who is not too stupid or full of himself to notice what is going on knows that what he does is morally indefensible. He is a kind of confidence man, preying on people's vanity, ignorance, or loneliness, gaining their trust and betraying them without remorse. That's an iconic quote from the book, The Journalist and the Murderer by Janet Malcolm. And she goes into the psychology and the psychopathology of the relationship between sources and journalists, and just how amazing it is the way that sources kind of open up to journalists, expect that there's this like two-way relationship when the source is also often a subject, and the journalist is going to take what they can and need from that source and pull in from other sources as well and produce journalism that is not necessarily going to be exactly what the source wanted. And the source will then be shocked that the journalist, when the story is over, is like, no, I'm going to notes.
Yeah.
We're not friends.
Well, and it's also, I mean, the vast majority of the Twitter Files reporting has been document-based.
Right.
It hasn't been relying on unnamed sources.
Well, there's been there's been reporting, but it doesn't seem like it was going to Musk because Musk wasn't there.
Right,
at the time. He wouldn't know. But they did interview a lot of like former vice presidents and former engineers and that sort of thing.
Yeah, they've gotten information from them, but I feel like the backbone of everything we've learned from the Twitter Files is document-based.
Right.
You see it in everybody's own words, and it's true that Musk gave them access. That's publicly knowledge. Like we know that Musk gave them access because he talked about how he gave them access, and Matt talked about how he gave them access. So none of that is like shocking. And for people to say like this is a dunk on Taibbi, I think is ridiculous. What you see here is some decent source massaging where he says, understandably, if I was at Twitter, it would have been a major optics issue for us both, right? And he's not wrong about that. It would have looked ridiculous. He couldn't. He honestly couldn't have reported that story if he was totally beholden to Twitter as an employee or anything like that.
Right, that's not journalism, yeah.
No, that's not journalism.
But speaking of Notes, if we can put up this third one here. So Notes has rolled out. This is Substack's basically version of Twitter. Are you on Substack?
No.
You gonna get on Substack? So I'm on Substack. I've been on there since like 2017 or something.
Yeah, you're an early adopter.
Yeah, my newsletter is called Bad News. I think I might change the name back to just Ryan.
I love the name.
Maybe I'll stick with Bad News.
I love
anyway,
the name.
go find Bad News on there. I've been doing a newsletter since before Substack, and I've been talking to these guys since the very beginning. I'm really like proud and excited for what they've been able to build, and I think they've done a really actually good job of creating space for free and open expression without kind of getting pigeonholed as kind of reactionary right wing, like has happened to a lot of other platforms that tried to do that. And I think that's like impressive on their front because it is so important and the value of open expression is not inherently right wing. And so for them to have been able to swim against that, I think has been impressive. And you can imagine when you look at this Notes app, why Elon Musk is like, that looks a lot like Twitter.
Yeah, I still don't think it's really a competitor to Twitter, though, because in the same sense that like it's hard for us to apply our definition of monopoly to Facebook or Instagram because people would say, well, Twitter is a competitor.
We can put C4 up here if people want to see what it looks like.
Yeah, take a look at this if you're watching. This is what, you can see how it looks similar to Twitter. I mean, it actually does really look similar to Twitter. And it makes sense that Elon Musk would retaliate. That's how business goes. He says, I'm drawing a red line in the sand here. It's weird to pick on Taibbi out of all of that, but that is to say, the point of Facebook isn't really a competitor to TikTok. It's a competitor in your time, but you can't like the point of Facebook is that every person is on the same platform. Every person is on the same platform with Twitter. Every person is on the same platform when it comes to TikTok. That's the point of your feed. Your feed is supposed to be all-encompassing. So I don't necessarily know that it's a good apples to apples to say that this is a competitor. But at the same time, I think you're right that what Substack has done is just so impressive as a business. And part of it is a good lesson, I think, to other people in C-suites, which is they just draw a red line on content. They say we are not getting involved in content decisions. And I think being upfront about that and being very bold about that, never, ever wavering on it, is so, so important, because when you do that, it gives you cover when stuff comes at you from the left, when stuff comes at you from the right. It's a good lesson for Twitter, actually, too, because I think it's what Elon Musk sort of aspires to be, but Twitter still can't quite do because it gets involved in content moderation more than it should.
And what Substack, I think, is trying to do is what Jack Dorsey suggested in a post that he just put up, I think, last night. If we could put up, I think, the fifth element here, which is basically to say that you should not be able to, take content that a creator created and put on the internet. Nobody else but the creator of it, the author of it, should be able to take that off the internet. Where the role of the internet and the public comes in is how you moderate and how you amplify those comments. So in other words, it's okay to leave terrible things up.
Yeah.
The problem comes if you're taking terrible things and just shoving them in everybody's face. And so what Substack tries to do is allow you to curate very carefully, what it is that you want to see. Elon Musk did an interview with the BBC last night on Spaces, and it became this big fight between the BBC reporter and Musk, where the BBC reporter was saying, my For You tab is just garbage. It's like a bunch of trash that I don't want. And he said, I'm seeing a lot of things that are, he used the phrase hateful, and then Musk asked him to define that. He was like, well, they're slightly sexist and slightly racist. And Musk was like, give me some examples. And he's like, I haven't looked at the For You tab for 3 weeks because it's just a stream of garbage. And Musk is like, aha, you say that there are slightly racist, slightly sexist things in the For You tab, but you can't name a single example of it. But what he's trying to get at is something deeper, which the BBC reporter, which is that he didn't want all this For You stuff. It's Twitter that was like, we think this stuff is for you.
Yeah.
Whereas what Substack is saying and what Jack Dorsey is suggesting is give people more of an ability to choose their own algorithmic experience. Like he said, there should be a G-rated algorithm that you can choose from, and then other algorithms where you can transparently decide, this is the way that I'd like to have my feed shaped, and these are the people that I want to follow. Because social media companies, YouTube among them, have gotten away from the idea that if you click subscribe or you click follow, that means anything.
Yeah.
Like, they don't care. They're like, no, we know what you're going to interact with better than you do, and we think engagement is more important than your own conscious choice of what you want.
And that's what really pisses me off about the For You tab on Twitter, which you get toggled onto by default. It drives me insane.
Yes. It's like, get out of here, stop.
Right. Because you get pushed like way more divisive content. And this is just my interpretation. More divisive, viral, annoying content than what you've curated for yourself, which is the cool thing about Twitter. It's one of the coolest ways to curate news because it's exactly what you're asking for. You can follow all of the different outlets that you really like, that you really trust, whether they're on the left or the right. You can pepper some celebrity content, some Vanderpump Rules content in there, the Bravo content that Ryan lives for.
But let me choose it. Yeah.
Yes, right. And there's no algorithm that's going to do that because it's not me. No matter how much it thinks it's me, it's not. So anyway, and it's all just a great reminder that we are guinea pigs in the real-time process of theorizing how some of this technology is best employed, the sort of capitalistic philosophy behind the ethics of it. And it's a reminder, like what Brandeis, when he's writing about privacy, he's writing about photography, right? The ethics of photography. And that's really wasn't all that long ago. So in the same way that people who were suddenly being photographed and immortalized, there were big philosophical privacy questions about that. There still are. That's a lot what we're getting into right now with the content we self-publish online.
And real quickly, I'll just read from Jack Dorsey, because two interesting things where he weighed in. One, he said, everything that happened to Twitter is my fault. He's like, in 2020, we had an activist investor who came onto the board. If you're watching Succession, you guys know how this works. They didn't like the way that I wanted to approach free expression and the user's relationship to the algorithm, and I gave up and made my exit strategy, and I left Twitter, and I feel terrible about that. So that's part one of what he says. On the Twitter files, he says, I do believe absolute transparency builds trust. As for the files, I wish they were released WikiLeaks style, with many more eyes and interpretations to consider. And along with that, commitments of transparency for present and future actions. I'm hopeful all of this will happen. There's nothing to hide, only a lot to learn. The current attacks on my former colleagues could be dangerous. It doesn't solve anything. If you want to blame, direct it at me and my actions or lack thereof. And his full piece, which you can get up at habla.news, is called A Native Internet Protocol for Social Media, which is laying out the kind of intellectual rationale for his basically new kind of attempt at building a social media company or organization that does what he's talking about. Gives freedom to users to post basically whatever they want, but then gives other protocols the ability to moderate and amplify that in ways that are hopefully creating a better experience for people.
Mm-hmm. Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Sagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.